Let's talk a little bit about different types of schools. So the way I think about this is that we have options, and here in Nebraska, quite a few options of different schools our children can attend. How these vary depend on three things: who can attend, what's taught, and what the funding source is. So this is a big chart. Don't worry, I have a little highlighter that goes through each one, so we'll talk through it real quick. Traditional public, this is what people predominantly think of as public or community schools. Who can attend? All students. It's usually based on place of residence. They generally accept all students, with very, very few that's not the case. And usually there's an extenuating circumstance. What's taught is a basic curriculum that's set by the State Board of Education. And we'll get into a little later how that curriculum trickles down to the actual classroom. And then finally, where does the money come from? This taxes. Also, we'll talk about what types of taxes in just a little bit. The second type of school we have is a charter school. And we actually don't have any charter schools here in Nebraska, but these very much exist in other places. I think actually in New Orleans, all of the schools, public schools, are charter schools, which is kind of an interesting model. Charter schools, the first thing I always remind people is that these are public schools. They're public schools. So they're paid for by taxes, but the way they differ from your traditional public school is sometimes who can attend. It might depend on the district. There's some school choice models, like I mentioned, in New Orleans, you rank which one you want to attend to. So there's some difference in who can attend. And then what's taught is really where charter schools are different. Highly flexible. They're exempt from some of the requirements that traditional public schools are outlined to adhere to, but the trade-off is higher accountability, which has created some kind of interesting models in different places. The third type of public school you'll probably hear about is a magnet school. So a magnet school is usually in a specialized area. So again, public school funded by taxes, but it specializes in some particular area. For example, my younger brother went to an arts magnet. He had 2 or 3 art classes every single year through high school, which is not the common experience in public high schools. So it's that concept. They're often STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math related magnet schools, but really it's that specific focus. Who can attend? Again, this is largely open. However, sometimes it's based on opt-in, sometimes it's based on a specific ability, and sometimes it's a lottery or some mix of those. So that takes care of the main types of public schools. Let's shift gears and talk about private schools. I separate private schools into private and religious private. And here in Nebraska, we often think of all private schools being religious, and we have a lot of them, so that makes sense. But separating those two is helpful to think about the different types of schools that exist in our state. So who can attend? Both private schools and private religious schools have the ability to restrict who can attend. So it could be based on test scores, it could be based on experience, it could be based on essays. It's a little bit more like college in that you apply and you are viewed as an applicant in many cases. And I should say private schools vary greatly in how they're run, but generally there is some sort of ability to not admit everyone. What's taught, usually it's very focused on the school. Oftentimes it's usually the same general curriculum that the state uses, but maybe specialized classes or different ways of teaching, electives, those different types of things. And then finally, how is it funded? Tuition. So money that parents and families pay to have their students attend. Religious private is very similar as far as what's taught and who can attend. The one difference I would say here is that oftentimes in a religious school setting, you have maybe a required religion class, or there's a religious element built into every lesson. So that's one difference. The other is that sometimes with who can attend, it's related on religious affiliation or different groups that you're a part of. And again, the main driving funding source is tuition. And again, this varies. I went to Catholic high school in Wichita, Kansas, and they have a model there that if you are a member of a local parish and you tithe, they've managed to find a way to fund education for any Catholic student. So, you know, it wasn't an out-of-pocket cost, but it still, again, was based on, it wasn't public tax money being used. And then finally, homeschooling. And homeschooling, who can attend, who lives in your house, what's taught, it's very family dependent. I will say, though, there are often curriculum packages, products that are sold, or some people use the state curriculum standards and just kind of tweak it. There's lots of options for what that looks like. And then, of course, the funding source is personal. So that gives a snapshot of the different types of schools, how they differ based on who can attend, what's taught, and the funding source.